Hey everyone and welcome. I'm your friend Art of Mana, and let's dive into a short discussion on why I think the PlayStation Classic damages the PlayStation name. You know me as a Nintendo fan. Nevertheless, I have grown to appreciate the many companies and individuals who contribute to the world of video games. And I say I've grown to appreciate them because there was a time when playground disputes over whether Mario or Sonic was better really was a thing. And honestly, when the PlayStation rolled around, I didn't pay too much attention to it. My early memories with the system really revolve around demo kiosks in stores. And on separate occasions, I was introduced to Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, and Legend of Mana. Now, Crash Bandicoot was exciting and honestly almost enough to entice me to give Sony a real chance, but it still felt alien to be moving backward and forward rather than side to side across the screen. And Tomb Raider, I hesitate to say, infuriated me from the get go with its slow tank controls. The real reason people liked it, I imagined, was its character design. And its character design was the source of my embarrassment as I played it at the kiosk. And then Legend of Mana was beautiful, and it was closer to what I was used to as it relied on sprites. However, I was once again really confused because I thought surely this game was somehow connected to Secret of Mana, right? But it didn't seem to be. And these were the days before I had access to the internet and I knew about the Seiken Densetsu series and its twisty kind of storyline. Later, my cousin rented a PlayStation and we played Bushido Blade, and this is about the extent of my early experience with the system. Now, I share these memories to indicate that I only have a passing nostalgia for the system when it was new, and it wasn't until much later that I revisited the console and I discovered some of its more charming and unique and, dare I say, laudable qualities. My memories aren't filled with vivid details of my time playing the system. But here we are today, 2018. Enter the PlayStation Classic. Now, the video game industry is one built on feelings of adventure and, as I've said before, nostalgia. And it's no surprise that Classic Edition esque mini consoles are popping up all over the place. So far, Nintendo's have reigned supreme. Nintendo's released nearly perfect miniaturizations of its 8 and 16-bit home consoles, with interfaces that harken back to the graphics of the time, definitive games as part of its selection, and emulation that mostly accurately represents the original experience on modern home entertainment setups. So really, it's the perfect package. When the PlayStation Classic was first announced, I was really excited for it. Honestly, it was really a tough call because it could have gone either way with its software lineup, but the hardware looked gorgeous and it was up there with Nintendo's own. Still, so much depended on the still to be announced game selection, I thought. And you know the story by now. So let's not belabor this. The game selection has some glaring oversights and omissions, and it includes some odd choices. I was likely passing at this point. You know, it might appeal to some people, and especially people who grew up with the system, but it really didn't appeal to me. Then a bit more time passed, and the biggest issues of all came out. I've not reviewed this unit myself, and I'm basing what I'm saying on other people's research and other people's comments. However, three things caused me to give this product a hard pass, and I'm sure they're things that you've heard time and time again. The first thing for me was that the user interface is uninspired and subjectively ugly. The emulation is inaccurate. This is the second thing. And finally, many games are PAL region versions that ran at slower speeds than the games we were used to in the US, or the US versions were faster than what our European friends would have experienced. In other words, it really didn't line up with the game experiences we had in the past. These products are really meant to capture a piece of video game history and make that history accessible to a modern era. And there are a lot of people who might want to buy something like this. On one hand, it's meant to feed our nostalgia, and let's be clear, we all remember games as better than they were. We all have, in other words, rose tinted glasses. So it's a rather tall order to repackage games without taking time to smooth over some rough edges. But these systems might also be an entry point for younger gamers to experience some of video games' history. So whether this system is bought for someone who wants to relive their own nostalgia or for someone who wants to share this nostalgia and share these games that meant something to them with their kids, accuracy is important. Not every parent who happens to hear about this product is going to know that the games won't be just like the ones they used to play before they sold off their systems in the past. They may even start to believe that some of the games really did run as slow or as buggy as they appear to in this console. And the kids might really strain to understand how anyone could put up with all of the glitchiness, the poor audio, and the really rough graphics that they're seeing presented to them. In my peer group, not many still have retro video game systems. So some have picked up shoddy clone consoles to use with the one or two games that they forgot they still had, and they've been really disappointed. A lot of those consoles don't emulate the audio as accurately as the original hardware, and so this music that they love and that they grew up with doesn't sound as good as they remembered it. Some have purchased those mini retro games units that you see all over at big box stores, and that are full of overwhelming heaps of cheap hacks and homebrew that are stuffed into anemic hardware that quickly just shows all of its defects. And so these friends lose interest in this little device. For those who've purchased the classic editions by Nintendo, there actually really hasn't been any disappointment. These powerful systems can bring back experiences of the past very accurately. And it was finally a safe way to suggest people reclaim a bit of their past and tap into waves of nostalgia. The classic mini consoles were a safe suggestion and something that I really appreciated being able to tell others purchase, get it, buy it for your kids. Enter the PlayStation Classic. Those who already have a PlayStation and a large library of discs are also people who will probably pick up this console and are excited to just have a small system to display and maybe occasionally play for the fun of it. They probably also know that any of the games they don't have, they can pick up inexpensively for the original systems or through the online stores on their PS4, PS3, Vita. They really don't need something like this. They'll be okay with poor emulation and strange game choices like PAL games being included because it's not really the driving force in picking up the system. They can turn on the original system anytime, and this is really more of a novelty. But for the many people who have not picked up a video game since the PlayStation, they'll have to wonder how they put up with such poorly programmed games and be disinclined to pick up a PlayStation 4 or eventually 5. For those who didn't experience that era of gaming and think that this will be a good way to do so, they won't experience the games as they were, and they'll form an inaccurate opinion of the original experiences. Basically, this doesn't really do anything good for anyone. Sony got halfway there. The hardware is great, the software is where it falls flat. The truly frustrating thing for me is that it confuses video game history and it gives newcomers an inaccurate view of the experiences that so many people did love. The truly frustrating thing for Sony should be that they're tarnishing their brand and its origins. But what do you think? What are some of your memories of PlayStation games? Do you want to pick up this console despite all of its flaws? I really do want to hear because I know some people actually have picked this up. I know one friend, a fellow streamer, who has decided to get one, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there who will despite knowing all of the issues. But what do you think? As always, do good and be well, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.